Welcome back to the Stick 'em Up podcast. Brundi, we are in the back half, I think it's safe to say, of the first round of the NHL playoffs. We've seen how many teams is it? 3 teams already have been eliminated. We didn't have an episode earlier this week. I worked the election on Monday and ended up getting sick from it, so we took an episode off, but we're back in full swing here. And there's a good amount to talk about with both these series, and there's a couple of different head coaching moves around the league. So I'm gonna throw it to you off the start. Where do you want to start?
I think best way to do it, as you mentioned, we weren't here at the beginning of the week, so I think probably start with some of the kind of news that's going on, and then we'll work our way into more of the playoff stuff. So if you want to pick whichever, I believe, because I can't remember. I think we covered all the other ones. I think it's just these two coaching changes. So I'll let you pick which one you want to read
Yeah,
out,
I
and then
think
I'll take care of the next one there.
yeah, I think you're right. It's just the two, and one of them being not. I don't know if it's necessarily surprising, but it's one of the longest tenured coaches in the league parting ways. Mike Sullivan and the Penguins are agreeing to part ways, and he's also rumored to be going to the Rangers, which I think I like for the Rangers. I think it's hard to tell. He's been with the Penguins so long. Like when you coach a team that has Crosby for that long, it's kind of hard to gauge how good the coach is. Obviously, he had a lot of success, but now they're going through a bit of a retool rebuild. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah, before this happened, Mike Sullivan was he the second longest tenured coach in the league?
I
Second,
believe so.
third?
Yeah, I think it was second.
Yeah, so absolute legend. Got two cups for Crosby and the Penguins. But it's one of those things where like it even if it's not his fault, it's just they need a change of scenery. They need to shake something up.
Mm.
It
Well,
it
that's
just kind of had
exactly
to
it.
happen.
Yeah, like they said, they agreed to part ways. The Penguins obviously are going in a bit of a different direction now from last few years. Nothing against Mike Sullivan as a coach; he's still a fantastic um, coach. He's terrific. It was just again, Penguins are going in a different direction. They're at this point now they're probably in need of someone new behind the bench, and it gives Mike Sullivan an opportunity to go win with another team. As Pittsburgh's still trying to figure out what they're going to be. Um, so
Yeah. Yeah, there's some of these teams where like even it's kind of not exactly the same with the Penguins because of their roster construction and they kept trying to go all in for Crosby a little earlier and now they're paying for it in the later bit, but
mhm.
sometimes the even if the coach is very good, you you just need to make a coaching change to get a change of scenery, a fresh voice. Sometimes the same message, even if it's one of the best in the league, it just gets stale if the guys have been hearing it for a long time. And
Yeah,
he's been there since what 2015, like
yeah, around
it might
there.
it might be even a little bit earlier. Like yeah, he's been there forever. So I think this is probably good for both sides. So it's yeah, there's not really any complaints, just kind of interesting to see where he goes because it's so hard to judge some of these guys that have been coaching and had success, but they were given very good rosters to work with, and let's see what they can do somewhere else.
Yeah, midway through the 2015-2016 season, he was brought in as head coach. So yeah,
And yeah,
he's been there with
immediately
the
back to back
Penguins.
cups.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Well, yeah, right away came in and got the job done, and then not much success since then. But again, that's just because, like you mentioned, they kept trying to win with what they had, and usually doesn't work. Um, the other coaching news comes out of Vancouver. We were talking about Vancouver last week, actually, about this, and we know for sure now that Rick Tocchet is out as the head coach of the Vancouver Canucks. Um, he wasn't fired. It wasn't mutually agreement. It was Rick Tocchet walking away from this, as it was reported that he was offered 5 years at $5 million per year, which would have made him one of the highest paid coaches in the league, and was not good enough for him. We talked about how much of a mess the team, the organization is kind of in right now, and obviously, uh, just not something that Rick Tocchet wants to continue to deal with and try to fix. It seems like he spent the entire season putting out fires there, um, to
Absolutely.
to
Yeah.
keep the team afloat, to keep the locker room together, and I mean, why would you want to sign up for that for 5 more years?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Like, and you know, he did walk away from the team, right? But it's not like he quit exactly, because his contract did run out.
Yeah,
He's the side that is refusing to renew. So it's not like he has years left on his contract and he's quitting. But that being said, it is still like, that's if that reported offer of 5 by 5 is true. I mean, not a lot of coaches get offered that kind of money.
yeah,
That's that's pretty rough for Vancouver if you're offering that amount of money and he's saying no, like it's just not worth it. He could go somewhere else and just not deal with a quarter of the crap that he'd have to in Vancouver. So I definitely get it from his side.
yeah. There's really not much more to say on that. It's kind of the way we assumed it was gonna go. It's definitely hurts a lot more for Canucks fans and whatnot, considering um, what he was offered, and most coaches would normally just take that because that's a lot of money for a coach. But I gotta respect Rick Tocchet for just putting his foot down and being like, hey, you know what? I tried all year long to fix this and keep the room together, and it just didn't seem possible no matter what anybody did. So I don't blame him for wanting to walk away and um, explore opportunities elsewhere. Go to maybe more of a cup contending team, or just a team that the locker room isn't just
Yeah.
absolutely destroyed right now.
One team that I want to bring up for kind of both of these coaches really is, because I genuinely don't remember. Um, do they have a new head coach, like full time head coach in Boston, or is it still like just the old
Um,
assistant coach kind
yeah,
of as
so
an
yeah,
interim?
I think it's Joe Sacco. Yeah, he's still um yeah, I mean he's technically still listed as the team's head coach, but I don't think they've committed to him being the guy. I think it's still one of those things where like they they
He's
could
kind of
they
interim.
could officially
Yeah,
announce him as head coach, kind of like what we've seen LA and Winnipeg do last year, or yeah, they could let him go and bring in someone else. So
yeah. So
technically they
I
can still be looking for a head coach though, yeah.
might be a bit more of an attractive location for either of those guys. It'll be really interesting to see where they both end up, because you know, yeah, they're both coming from really unique situations. One of them having a top 5 player all time for the last decade, and the other one coming from a team that's just had an insane amount of turnover over the past calendar year.
Well, and let's not forget, right, that Rick Tocchet last year won the Jack Adams as the top head coach in the league, right? So there's going to be teams out there that are going to be interested in him. It's not going to be one of those situations where he's without a job come the start of next season. Like he will find a job. One um team, I won't go super deep into this, but one team that I think would be a good fit for Rick Tocchet would be the New York Islanders. And I think Islanders are kind of like Boston. We don't know necessarily what their coaching situation is going to be. They do still have Patrick Waugh, but Lou Lamoriello's out. They need to find a new GM first, and then we'll see what the new GM wants to do there. If they want to keep Patrick Waugh there, or if they want to go out and get their own head coach and um, try and build something new there. And if that's the case, I really like the idea of Rick Tocchet to the Islanders.
Yeah, something about Rick Tocchet kind of screams New York Islanders to me. I'm not
Yeah.
exactly sure what it is, but that that does feel like a good fit. Did he ever coach Bo Horvat in
I
Vancouver?
do. Ooh, It's a good question, actually. Let me see if I can find it here. I don't. Fuck, maybe he did. Maybe it was that one, like, his first year might have been the year um, that Horvat was traded to the Islanders.
Horvat was traded January 30th,
Yeah.
2023.
So he got 49 games of coaching Horvat, which in those 49 games, that was when Bo was playing the best hockey he's ever played. He had 31 goals, 54 points in those 49 games. So
Yeah, might be a nice little fit over there. And
maybe a reunion of those two could
very
be
welcome
exactly what
change
the
of
Islanders
scenery.
need. Yeah.
But I think that's all we have for stuff. That's pretty much everything outside of the playoffs to talk about until the very end.
Yeah. Well, we know draft lottery is taking place on Monday. So,
Oh
we'll see how
yeah,
that goes. Keep an eye on the socials. We'll have lots of stuff surrounding the draft lottery there.
that'll
Yeah.
be a lot of fun.
Yeah, I'm looking forward to it. It's mainly the only thing those of us like me can look forward to when your team sucks that bad. And then some of the major awards like the Hart, Ted Lindsay, all those ones, we're slowly getting to find out who the finalists are. So we'll probably wait until next week when we have like the full list of every awards finalist, and then we can kind of talk about those a bit and debate on who
Yeah,
we think will win, and talk about some of the players who didn't even get nominated who maybe deserve to. But
yeah.
we'll save that
Honestly, those are
for next week
that'll
when we
be
know it
good
all
to
in one
talk
week.
about when we have them all because there was some that I was rather shocked about. So that'll be good to save until next week if there's not as much to talk about once some of the now that some of the series are done and there'll be less games being played.
Yeah. But yeah, I think with that, I think we are good to move on to the big stuff, the playoffs that are still currently underway. A lot of fantastic series still ongoing, a couple of series that have wrapped up. Braden, I will throw the floor to you on which series. Some of these series we'll talk about a bit more because there's more news and stuff surrounding them. Some of them, there's really not much. So those ones will be a bit quicker. But Braden, I will ask you, where do you want to start here?
My gut says we should do them in order of the teams getting eliminated, but I don't think I can handle sitting here stewing in the thought of it. So let's start with the Battle of Florida.
Battle of Florida. The Florida Panthers and Tampa Bay Lightning. Series wrapped up yesterday with Florida eliminating Tampa in 5 games. That is cooked our brackets. Our
It's
brackets
rough.
are toast. If
Did
you're
you
one of the
have
few people
did
that
you have
were
Tampa winning as
dogging on
well?
us, I had them going to the Cup final. I had them losing to Colorado. So after tonight, like my bracket could be just ruined.
Yeah. Yeah, mine's absolutely cooked for quite a few reasons. Um, I also took Montreal to go on. I've got quite a few that I took some swings, but were pretty rough. I know a lot of people are saying that this is a huge disappointment for Tampa, and obviously it is. Anytime you get eliminated from the playoffs, it is. But I don't know. I feel like I was one of the few people that didn't underestimate Florida. There were so many people that were saying, they don't look good. And like they don't look like the same team necessarily as last year, but there's a lot of there was a lot of narrative going into the playoffs that they don't they don't look like a team that'll make it very far. And I guess they did go on a skid towards the end of the year, but
Yeah,
those teams, as soon as they
they
hit
were
the
dealing with
playoffs, they turn a
yeah, and like
switch.
they had injuries. They were sitting guys out, and we picked. You and I both picked Tampa, but I picked Tampa not even because of how they were playing towards the end of the um. Well, partially for Tampa, why I picked them, I guess, was kind of how they were playing down the stretch. Like they were one of the most dominant, if you could say, the most dominant team in the league. But it wasn't with Florida, like, oh, they were on a skid or anything. Because again, They had guys injured. They had guys that they were sitting and resting because to them, home ice advantage didn't matter.
They also had guys suspended going into the playoffs. They had
Yeah.
Aaron Ekblad, who was out for, I think, 18
18
games to end the
the final.
season, and then the
Yeah.
first 2 games of the playoffs. So
Yeah. So it was never like, oh, Tampa's going to wipe them. Like we knew it was going to be a close series. I had Tampa in 6, but it was Tampa in 6 where every game was close. Maybe an
yeah,
overtime game or 2 in there. Kind of sucks we were robbed of not getting a single overtime game in this series. I thought that would have been um,
yeah, absolutely.
fantastic. This was one of the most, I don't want to say the most chaotic series because I think there's one that probably tops it. But there was so much going on in this series.
Yeah,
We had Hagel who was suspended after game 2, and then basically the following game, Kachuk goes out there and does basically the exact same thing, but doesn't get suspended, which I thought was kind of weird with that. But I guess what are your thoughts on that? Because we haven't really dove much into that whole side of the series.
yeah. So this is kind of my main problem with a lot of it in general is a lot of these top teams over the past multiple years, Tampa, Florida, Vegas, especially up until this year, Boston has been great at it. Colorado, one thing that they all have in common is they have absolute kings at talking to the refs. Stamkos was one of the best guys in the league at massaging the refs, talking to them how they like. He has their respect. Guys
He
like
just has such a
Marchand,
soft voice.
like they're
It's comforting.
just right. Like they're so good at talking to these refs, and on top of that, all those teams also, Paul Maurice, John Cooper, Jim Montgomery, they're some of the best coaches at talking to these refs. And so it makes a lot of sense when those teams get some favorable calls sometimes. Nothing insane usually, but every once in a while, maybe a major is a minor, maybe a minor tripping goes uncalled when it would get called on, the Minnesota Wild or something. But that's how a lot of these playoff series have gone over the past several years. But that's not what I have issue with this series. I have more issue with the off ice officials, that being the Department of Player Safety, because uh it just really, like, I don't want to sit here and play the victim card, because a lot of teams in that on ice reffing capacity have been not necessarily screwed, but the refs definitely kind of lean towards Tampa over the past 5 years. It's happened to a lot of teams, especially the playoffs. But in this one, it was the off ice officials in the department that, Hagel's hit. Was it bad? Absolutely. Was it dirty? At the minimum, kind of. At the least. The puck was in the area, but Barkov never touched it. He never had it. But 5-minute major in a 2-1 game with 9 minutes left, and then comparing the almost, like you said, almost identical hit. I will say maybe a little bit less violent hit from Kachuk, just because it didn't go into the boards. But that getting the same 5 minutes and then no suspension, even though that one happened in a 4-1 game where it became 5-1 on an empty netter right after that hit. So, like, that 5-minute major that Florida got, like, they really don't care. That game was already done. They knew it. Like, 4 goals, that's a steep hill to climb with a few minutes to spare. I think that happened with like 2 minutes or something. And, Hagel's, that was in a close game. And, like, obviously we also know that suspensions are more in the playoffs. The general rule of thumb is, every 2 games in the regular season is 1 game in the playoffs. You're telling me Kachuk's wasn't worth a suspension at all, but Hagel's was worth a 2-game suspension in the regular season, 1 in the playoffs.
Yeah, so
That doesn't
and
that
again,
doesn't
you
seem
know,
right.
I'll kind of not necessarily play like, you know, devil's advocate, but kind of in the middle from both sides. So
For sure.
the Hagel hit, I get 5 in a game because by the rules and the definition, if it's a penalty and it results in like an injury that takes a player out of the game, the rest will usually call that 5. Um,
Yeah, I have no issue with it being
and
5, by the way.
whether he's suspended or not, I don't think it was worthy of a suspension, honestly. But they did give him a game. I was like, okay, you know what? That's fine. It's understandable. But then you have to hold Kachuk to that same standard. If you didn't suspend Hagel, you don't have to suspend Kachuk then. But if you suspend Hagel, you have to give Kachuk because it was
Exactly.
again not the exact same thing,
It
different
was
circumstances, but
shockingly similar.
it was yeah, it was along the same lines. And you
They were
can't
eith they were
penalize one
both
team
even
with a
clean
suspension
hits
and
outside of interference. Like,
Mhm,
no head contact from Kachuk or Hagel. Like, on both of them would have been fucking beautiful hits if the guy had the puck. Both of them would have been
mhm.
like top-notch hits if they had the puck. They just
Yeah.
neither guy did.
Yeah, so I didn't like it from that side just because again, because they're so similar in that way, you gotta hold it to the same standard. You can't, you know, suspend one guy, but let the other guy walk away and be like, "Ah, it's not." Because at that point, it just looks really bad for the Department of Player Safety. It makes them look even more like a joke than they already are, considering they're fining players out the ass for shit in warm-ups when who cares?
I
But
know a lot of people have that opinion, and I get it, but at the same time, I do think it is a slippery slope to allow players to take shots at another goalie in warm-ups. Like, it's one of those things, how far do you let it go? Like, I'm glad they didn't do a suspension. That would have been insane. But,
well, you c
like,
but
a little
I know
fine
which
a
one you're
fine
talking about, but
just
it's
to put it out there like, "Hey, don't."
yeah, but you gotta read the room with it a bit. Like, I the one you're talking about, I'm assuming was the Ottawa Toronto, and it was like it was Nick
Yes, that's the
Cousins
only pre-game
lightly
one that I heard of.
yeah, like, it was Nick Cousins lightly kinda sliding the puck over to Stolarz, and in most cases, I get, yeah, be mad, but it's like
Was he in the
it
net? I haven't even seen the clip.
no, it was he was almost kinda right by center ice doing his
Kind of in that
stretches.
spot where the
Cousins
goalies
came
do
out,
stretches, sure.
slid it over, and it's like, in most circumstances, sure, if you wanna get all raw mad about it, but these are 2 guys that just won the Stanley Cup together. They're buddies, they're friends, and now they're
Mhm.
facing off in the playoffs the next year. It wasn't anything vicious. I mean, it was Nick Cousins who
Okay.
got fined, so, like, honestly, I'm okay with it, like, cool.
You know what?
Um,
Honestly, that might be factoring into my bias on it a little bit.
yeah,
I
but
I I
it's
genuinely
just
do
weird
wonder
that
if it was, Drake Batherson, if I would care.
yeah, like, to be finding players, stuff like that when and they gotta hold that standard now, which they kinda have been, but, like, we've seen before where guys, you know, meet at the middle and they're talking about who's gonna fight who and I'm gonna,
And
you
they'll
know,
they'll be
knock your
yapping
teeth
pretty good,
in
yeah.
and we saw a couple years ago in the finals, we saw Ovi give a little slash to Fleury during warm-ups, kinda came by and gave him a tap on the pad, and then Fleury gave him a whack afterwards, and
Yeah.
maybe for that you could, but
I wonder
it's
if
like,
it's because it's Nick Cousins.
why are they more focused on warm-up stuff than what actually takes place during the game, is kinda
Yeah,
my biggest takeaway from it
and you know
all.
what? That's a great point because, yeah, like, to bring it back to the game 2, Battle of Florida, like, Hagel got suspended there, but that wasn't even the worst hit of the game. Carter Verhaeghe, I believe it was like a minute and 30 seconds into the game. Like, it was right at the start. Verhaeghe dumps Sorelli from behind, and he goes head first into the boards. And thank God Sorelli gets his hands up because that could have been brutal. Like,
Mhm.
he was in the danger zone. That, like, if he doesn't get his arms up, that's like bring out a stretcher type of hit, and absolutely no call. And
Yeah.
like, it didn't end up being bad, thank God, but, like, the fact that it got absolutely nothing and then, some of these other things are getting all these penalties, it's like it's just those incredible inconsistencies. Like, it's not like Hagel
Yeah.
shouldn't have been penalized, but, like, why are some of these things being let go?
And that's exactly it, yeah, and I'm again, you know, because hockey is the fastest game out there, there's always a lot going on. There's, stuff happening within the play and stuff happening behind the play. I always try to give the refs the benefit of the doubt, but there's been a lot of stuff so far in the playoffs where I'm like,
if a guy
it's
has the
tough
puck,
to
it's
try and
so
defend
hard to
them.
give him that
Um,
benefit of the doubt as well.
y-
Like when the
yeah,
play's right there, it's like none of you guys were looking where the puck was.
yeah, exactly right.
Like that's crazy. And there was after Hagel came back from his suspension and in game 4, Aaron Ekblad catches him with a bit of a not necessarily an elbow, a bit of a forearm to the face, and
Yeah.
Hagel ends up leaving the rest of the game and not being able to play for game 5, and no penalty call on Ekblad, and they gave him a 2-game suspension after the game, but he also scored one of the pivotal goals to help them win that game because he was still in there and not penalized. So
Mhm.
it's like
Yeah, so the
I
Ekblad
wonder
one
if
is
Tampa won that game if it's a 2-game suspension. Like it's one of those situations where it's hard to tell at this point because you don't know if they're just calling each one as they see it randomly or if they've got a bit of an agenda.
yeah, so with the Ekblad one, I thought it was so I because there's 2 angles, to the hit. You can kinda see the one from if you're on the ice and seeing it, so kinda more of the ref point of view,
Yeah.
and y it looks bad, um, but it's the outside angle from what the fans see, from when you get it and you're looking through the glass at it, that's the one where you see it and you're like, "Okay, that's a bad hit. That's a suspendable hit. That should be 5 in a game." We've seen refs before where a hit like that happens and there's no call on the ice, but then they kind of get together and then they'll go review it and then they'll give out a penalty. And that didn't happen with this, which I thought was really weird because refs have always been fine of doing that before. And especially when you see I think the major result of Hagel's injury is because his head, um, when he falls down, his head kind of hits the ice, and I think that's the majority of what his injury is. But at the
Yeah.
end of the day, a player is injured from a hit. Why do you not at least review it? If and you can see the one ref clearly saw it,
Yeah.
so he knows that the injury resulted from the hit. Why not review it?
It feels
That's
like
the
in the
one part I
playoffs,
had a hard time
an injury
understanding.
resulting from a hit should be like an auto review. Like it's crazy that they didn't even
Yeah.
take a look at it, and it's just the insult to injury that he ended up scoring and being so pivotal in the result of that game before being suspended, and then you know the 2 games. It's like how much are those going to matter going forward? And like
Well,
it
it's the same with
also
the
stings a little extra that it's a guy coming off of a 20-game suspension for doing performance enhancing drugs. We don't know exactly
Mhm.
which one, but it broke the
It
wellness
was
policy
something.
for PEDs, and he comes back and immediately, with all this rest and whatever that is, goes out there and kind of uh, just throws a phenomenal forearm on a guy, and it's like it's just an extra bad taste with all the surrounding things around it, especially.
Well, and it's the same with the Hagel one. I still believe if Barkov didn't get injured and leave the game, Hagel probably only gets 2 minutes, but it's because it resulted in an injury and a player who left the game. It was 5. Why is it not the same here?
Yeah,
Is what I understand, and it 100%. It was total insult to injury at that point when Ekblad scores to tie the game up. It gets called back, and it's like, okay, good, he's not the one. And then, sure enough, he scores again to tie the game, and Florida goes on to win that one. He did get suspended 2 games, which I like. I like that they did hammer down on that because um, to not be kicked out of that game or any penalty, I thought was crazy. Um,
yeah. I do like that they
yeah.
gave him 2 games, but it really was just kind of a too little, too late. Like you didn't call it in the moment, and now we're down 3-1 in the series.
I will say though
But
that you know Mikula did have that kind of hit. It was on Gergensons. He did get 5 in a game. He did get fined. So Tampa did at least end up getting a 5-minute power play in that game. And the part that's really crushing for them is you finally get that 5-minute power play, and you only recorded one shot on net for it.
Yeah.
And it was kind of a mixture of both things. It was like Florida's penalty kill looked good, but at the same time,
They looked
Tampa
great a
had
lot of the
had
time.
opportunities, and the passes just weren't connecting like they were the entire regular season. Like in most cases in the regular season, you give Tampa a 5-minute power play, they're probably putting up 2. They're at least getting 1.
Yeah.
And I think that was very tough. I did like the response after the Ekblad hit. They went out there immediately and potted 2 goals. John Cooper was as fired up as I think I've ever seen him.
Very, very similar celebration, for those who know, hit to his celebration when Kucherov scored with 7-ish seconds left in a tie game against the Islanders in the bubble playoffs. I think that was in a
Oh yeah,
game 3 or 4 when he turns around and he's fist pumping and yelling on the bench. That's that's
yeah.
uh that's an all-time classic coach reaction. And yeah, I've watched as much of this game as I could find in highlights and stuff, and going back and looking at it. But this game also, the game 4 happened the day of the election that I was working, so I wasn't able to watch it live. But yeah, I I was also kind of surprised Mikula didn't get something for that hit suspension wise.
Well, he
Uh,
got fined.
he got fined, but that's basically nothing. Like I'm surprised he didn't get a suspension. Like I I almost, it's obviously to a less impactful player, Hagel versus Gurgensen's, but like I feel like a lot of people say that Ekblad's was worse, but like I almost think that one was one of the worst in the series, if not the worst. This guy is back to you on his knees, like he was about to be executed, and this Nico Mikula is what, 6'6", and this behemoth
He's
comes
big.
in and just fucking hammers him into the boards. Like it was rather similar to the hit Kucherov threw in the 2019 sweep with Columbus, where he got suspended, what, 2 or 3 games? Like that one was vicious. I was surprised so few people were talking about it. I think because it didn't involve both players aren't as big of names, but like just in general, that one felt
I
like,
think it's one of those ones where he maybe gets a game if he didn't get ejected. Like it's one of those ones where maybe if you got away with it, then instead of a fine, it's like, yeah,
yeah,
you get 1 game for it. But again,
there's a good chance
the
of
way the
that as well.
reffing is in the Department of Player Safety, it's so hard to tell. The biggest thing, we don't have to talk about Florida too much because we'll talk more about Florida when we know who they're
Throughout these
playing
playoffs.
more. They are looking very good though. So that the biggest takeaway I got for Tampa is Nikita Kucherov. Just won his 3rd Art Ross trophy. 4 assists in 5 games. The 3 assists came in Tampa's 1 win. So when Kucherov was on and putting up points, they won. But the biggest thing is he now has 0 goals in his last 15 playoff games.
Yeah, and his goal scoring, even in the cup wins, always goes down a bit compared to the regular season. But his point producing doesn't usually. Like usually he's still putting up a lot of the assists. Obviously, he's putting up a couple less assists and obviously way less goals, 0 goals.
Mhm.
I I 100% get it because I've seen it all over online since yesterday, and that people are talking about that. I watch the games I watch. I can't put this on Kucherov. I got to
No,
put it
I'm
on the
not
guys
putting it on
out there
him,
with him.
but it's
No,
if
no,
you're
his performances even I can't put on him. Like obviously he's not the
Mhm.
reason we lost, but like every time the puck not even touches his stick yet, but like if the pass begins coming towards him, there's 2 guys on him
Mhm.
instantly already. And as an elite player, you have to know how to deal with that. But, at the same time, if there's 2 guys on you, what does that mean? Who's open now? Is it Jake Gensel or is it Braden Point? One of those guys is completely free. And those guys need to help him, support him, step up. And I think Jake Gensel had a fantastic series, honestly.
Yeah,
He really
he was
impressed me out
He
there.
was Tampa's best player
He
in this
probably,
series, I would say.
yeah,
And
I
that's why I
think
hate the
minimum
argument
he's
from
top
people
3.
online saying, "Oh, Tampa had Stamkos." Well, if you had Stamkos, you wouldn't have Gensel.
Exactly.
And as much as I love Stamkos, as good as he is, I don't think he's doing more than what Gensel did. He could maybe do the same, but I doubt you get more production.
I think we get
I
one
think it's
more
safe to
thing from
say.
him, and I don't know if it makes him more valuable than Gensel in these playoffs, but I think Stamkos goes out there, he drops the glove, and he fights someone. We did
Yeah,
This was a
that
vicious, dirty series. 0 fights, I'm pretty sure. Was there a fight? Unless I missed it. I don't
I think there was just some scrums, but I can't think of
I
off
watched
the top of my head of 2
3
guys
full
dropping a
games,
miss.
and I picked up as much as I could from the other 2 that I was busy for, but yeah,
I don't think there
there
was.
I don't think there was any drop the gloves fight. It was all just shoving, pushing, and then hits and slashes and whatnot. And, you know, I don't know if Stamkos going out there and fighting makes up the difference to turn around a 5-game series loss, but it would have been nice to see somebody do it. Um, but yeah, Gensel honestly played really well. Played pretty decent defense outside of the games 1 and 2. But man, I'm really hoping Braden Point bounces back next season, next playoff specifically, because he had a
Very
lot of
well could be dealing with
chances.
an injury. He
I
is
definitely think there's a good chance of it.
great. Yeah,
Um,
and I'm not putting it on Kucherov. It's more so the thing of if and again, this is a guy that, a lot of good players on the team, but the offense runs through Kucherov.
yeah,
A big tipping point of it is you got to tip your hat to Florida. They were going up against a lot against Barkov and Reinhart, who
yeah,
it kind of sounds like they're the unanimous like 1 and 2 for the Selkies. So I mean, like fuck, what can you expect guys to do, right? Like you look at the majority of the finals last year. Draisaitl was completely shut down. McDavid struggled for the first bit, eventually got it going, but it's tough. And if you're Tampa, if Kucherov gets shut down by those guys, it's very tough to win. And a bigger
yeah,
thing, not having Oliver Bjorkstrand, who was your big trade deadline acquisition, not having him for the entirety
yeah,
of this series was also a pretty big loss too.
yeah. That definitely hurt not having a little bit extra depth scoring. Just another guy who can really rip the puck. Like, yeah,
Hmm.
that definitely sucked not having him in there. And uh, yeah, there's a couple of guys that you know it's funny because a lot of the guys that are taking the most heat for this series loss that I'm seeing, like kind of just in general online, are the ones I don't put it on, and the players that they aren't talking about kind of are. Like a lot of people are talking about Vasi and Kucherov. They were still 2 of our best players in this series. Kucherov put up 4 assists in 5 games with 2 guys on him at almost all times, even on the penalty when they're on the penalty kill and he's on the power play. Vasi, you know, the first game was rough, and he had a couple of soft goals that you'd love him to stop for sure. But there are so many of their goals where it's just cross east west, cross crease pass. This guy's wide open. He's got the whole net to shoot at, and like,
Hmm.
yeah, it's just a lot of defensive breakdowns. Um, Hedman had a really rough game 5. Oh my god, he did not look great out there, and I'm not sure if he's nursing an injury or because I know we have rested him a couple of times down the stretch, or if it's just an age thing. I believe he's 34 right now, but I'm hoping he can bounce back as well because he definitely didn't look fantastic there. And obviously, I mean, for anyone who watched even just one game, you're probably familiar with the names Perbix and Lilleberg. Uh, yeah, those 2 guys probably shouldn't be
They
coming back.
struggled.
Definitely
Yeah,
not Definitely not Perbix. Very replaceable. Lilleberg, there's still quite a few things to like, but he makes some bad decisions. He takes quite a few bad penalties. I wouldn't be surprised if, you know, over the final 20 games of the regular season, if he had almost 50% of our penalties. Like it was like clockwork every game, hooking,
yeah.
tripping, like
Yeah, they definitely did struggle out
In
there.
in the playoffs, if you're taking a 2-minute penalty, you need to be getting your pound of flesh. It better be because you beat the shit out of a guy, not not
Well, yeah,
because you
yeah,
grabbed his jersey long enough that the ref was like, "Okay, idiot, I have to call that." So,
yeah.
and then on top of that,
Um,
obviously, Sorelli kind of being injured, Hagel being suspended, injured. There was
yeah.
a lot of bad things that just kind of lined up at the wrong time for Tampa. But it,
Mhm.
it's very annoying because I mean, look how good this Florida team is. They could I don't think there's a team that in the league that they don't at the least have a chance to beat in a series, right?
Yeah.
If not the favorite against most. But and even that playing relatively clean, but it's the fact that they played so dirty throughout that just leaves the bitter taste in your mouth
Mhm.
because it works so well for them. And it's like
Yeah,
a
no, that's
begrudging respect
understandable.
thing, but I can also hate them for it.
Mhm.
But that's
Fun.
hockey.
Again, everybody's got that rival team of theirs that they dislike, and so
Yeah,
totally
we got plenty
understandable.
of
Totally get
Flames
it.
fans who listen that they know that just as well as anybody with Edmonton.
Yeah. But for time's sake, we should move
Yeah,
forward here.
absolutely.
Um, two more eliminations have taken place. We won't have as much to talk about with these. We'll start off with probably the quicker one. The Carolina Hurricanes eliminate the New Jersey Devils in 5 games by doing so in double overtime off the heroics of Sebastian Aho. Um, I had Carolina in 5.
I think
They
I
won in
had them in
5.
a
I mean,
sweep, actually. I think that was my one sweep.
yeah, actually, I think that's you did have the one. Um, Again, not one of those series that again it was a fun series, but it was also exactly what we expected. It was, how long can kind of New Jersey hang on? Just again, dealing with so many injuries. Um, their one win did come in overtime from Simone Nemec, actually, who got to come into the lineup due to some injuries. Um, but again, Carolina was the better team coming into the series. They were the more healthy team. Um, I thought New Jersey looked better than they probably should have because Jacob Markstrom was so good throughout this
Markstrom
series.
was fantastic for them. Markstrom and
Yeah,
Jesper Bratt were both very good throughout this series, but beyond that, there wasn't a ton to love as Devils fans. Like, yeah, they they're just without their best player, and there is still a young team coming up, and Carolina's kind of kind of hitting their stride, hitting their peak right now. So it was always an
yeah, they're
uphill battle.
yeah, and it's one of those weird ones where again, like I said, Carolina looks so good, but obviously any team in the playoffs, you can go through every single team, and there's some issues with Carolina right now. It's kind of hard to pinpoint what the issue is going to be with them because I again, no disrespect to New Jersey, but I feel like Carolina wasn't really tested a whole lot in this series. Obviously, some games did go to overtime. There were some close games, but it was never one of those ones where it was like, oh, Carolina's in danger. Like they're just trying to hang on and hope they can get a lucky goal to pull this one out or something. It was like it always kind of felt like they were in the driver's seat. Um,
Yeah,
and again, for New Jersey, the biggest thing is just it's the injuries. We've talked about it at extensive lengths. They really did all they could. I think the outline for what they need to do in the offseason, you got to beef up your forward depth. You've got lots of defensemen. You've got your goaltending. It's now fill out that forward core a bit more. So if you have these injuries, you've got more guys that you can deploy as opposed to, you know, losing Jack Hughes hurts regardless, but it would help if you had one or two more guys that, were
can step up to the
you could
plate.
get a goal or a couple points out of in a playoff series, right? As opposed to a lot of guys that were shut down and couldn't generate much. So, but congrats to Carolina, off to round 2. I
Yeah,
guess
it
we know
definitely
who they're
seems like
playing, who we'll get into, but
it definitely seems like this was the series with the least to talk about looking back on it. Like there wasn't there wasn't really any big moments that, there wasn't things like some of the cross checks that we'll talk about with the next series, or the Hagel or the Kachuk hit. Like there wasn't
Mhm.
really any of that with this series. Like what was the biggest moment? The OT winner where the Devils got one.
And Sebastian Aho's to win the series, like,
Yeah,
those are the 2.
Markstrom slashing his own guy by
Well,
accident. Like
actually, yeah, that's a big one.
that's pretty much it. Like
I
there
think
was
this
no
is
big
the
like, oh,
start.
we got a playoff series going on here. Like not like
I
it
feel
was
like
bad
this is the
hockey, but
start of it, though, because Carolina's a good young team, great contracts. They're gonna be in the playoffs for years to come, and New Jersey's at that point now where they're gonna be in the playoffs for years to come. And I feel like this is gonna be one of those series that we're gonna start to see a lot of,
we could be seeing
year
them
after
meet in
year
the
after
second
year.
round every year for
Yeah,
the next 6 years, and I wouldn't be
yeah,
that
whether it's
shocked.
first round, second round, we're gonna be seeing a lot more of these teams against each other, and I think this is the first of many we're gonna see, and I do expect, as we've seen with many other series that we keep getting, this is one is slowly gonna ramp up over time, but New Jersey definitely has, some work to do to kind
Catch
of
up
be
to
on
them.
that same level as Carolina,
Yeah.
um, and they know that I expect they're gonna address those issues in the offseason, so I'm not worried about them going into next year, but
Oh,
for
yeah.
Carolina, again, looks really good.
Like
Really good.
3, 4, 5 years ago, Carolina was basically in the same spot that the Devils are in now, Like
Yeah.
Sebastian Aho, Andrei Svechnikov, like they're all not veterans, but they've been around the block, right? But like
Mhm.
back then, they were all these high skill young guys coming up and trying to they looked strong in the playoffs, but they just weren't quite a team that could, get to the cup. And, now they're more seasoned. The team has been rounded out a bit more. And there's a lot of similarities to see between this team and the Devils team coming up. So yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's going to be a really good rivalry for the next couple of years here.
Yeah, I'm thinking so. Um, yeah, don't really have much more to say on that. One series that we weren't expecting there to be much rough stuff for rivalry. We did get. Oh, good thing I got muted in time there. Um, Washington eliminates Montreal in 5 games in one of the more rougher series we've seen so far in the playoffs this year. We got the big old bench fight there. We had a lot of guys grabbing each other on the ice. We saw a little bit of a hug and buddy
Ooh,
moment between Lane Hudson and Ryan Leonard.
yeah,
Um,
we saw a little bit off the ice. you don't uh, you don't get to see that too often.
yeah, no, like this was a series that again I had Washington in 5. I did say this would be I didn't think there was going to be a sweep this year, but I said if there was going to be, this would be it, and well, I got that one wrong saying that. Um,
No sweeps this year, right?
yeah, no, not a single one.
We always figure there's going to be at least one, and generally there is, but this year every team at least pulled out one. And yeah, I think I had the Habs in 7 for this one. Uh, I always knew that was going to be a bit of a long shot, but it was they gave me a lot of reasons to think that they could pull it out. But Washington, they just played a really solid game.
Yeah. One more thing with Carolina, Frederick Anderson looked great.
I
Washington,
I almost went
Logan
back to
Thompson
talk
looked.
about Freddie Anderson. Yeah,
Yeah,
he had a
we talked about
phenomenal.
Markstrom, but we didn't mention Freddie, and he looked really good. Don't know about his health, dealing with a little bit of an injury, but Carolina,
He always is.
you won in 5, so you get a little bit of time off, so you get time to rest up. With Washington, Logan Thompson looked good. Montembeault in the games he played for Montreal looked really good, and if you're Montreal, again, you made the playoffs. That was the first step. You've got your core. You look at teams when they come out of a rebuild, you get into the playoffs. No team immediately comes out of a rebuild and goes on a run. The first step is just get back in the playoffs, get some experience. So when you're back there next year and the year after that, you're more familiar. You're ready for that because we always see the pace get ramped up. And again, Washington has all that experience. Washington was the better team on paper. For Montreal, it sucks going out in 5 games. It's tough, but you got to be back in the playoffs. You got a couple electric games in
And I
Bell
think the
Center. You got to
playoffs was
win.
like not like I feel like for a team like the Senators, I feel like this year the playoffs was the goal, right? Like not necessarily winning in the playoffs, just at least make the playoffs. I think that was a bit of a long shot goal for the
It
Canadians.
it actually
Like
was. Yeah.
like they
You were
wanted to, but like realistically, most people had the Sens being above them, which they were. A lot of people probably had
Detroit and Buffalo over
Detroit,
Montreal.
yeah, probably even
Actually,
Buffalo
maybe not
ahead of them.
Buffalo.
Buffalo, if you
Everyone
believe
knows
they could
Buffalo
break
sucks.
their voodoo.
Yeah.
But like, yeah, like just getting into the playoffs was huge for them, and being able to even get one win out of uh, the, I believe, second team in the NHL this year,
Yeah.
second or third. I'm not sure if the Stars passed the Caps by the end, but like
Best team in the East.
best team in the East,
Top,
yeah.
top
So
dogs.
I yeah, I think they did really well, and they they did not get a lot of love from the refs. I don't think they necessarily got screwed a ton, but there were a couple of bigger times where, again, in this series, the reffing reared its ugly head and kind of made itself a bit of a narrative when everyone just wants to focus on the hockey.
Hmm. Yeah, I don't think the reffing was great in this series, but it's one of those ones where, even if the refs were calling some things, maybe Montreal gets to 6 games instead of 5. Um,
Yeah, I don't think it turns. I don't think it turns the series, but it's
but
just one of those
but it'd
things
just
that
be
leaves
nice
a
for the
sour
refs to.
taste in your mouth. It'd be nice if
Yeah.
they did it if they lost by the books, you know?
Yeah, no, I totally get what you're saying. Um, but yeah, you're 100% right. For Montreal necessarily, the goal was, well, I mean, obviously the goal is to make the playoffs, but it wasn't the expectation. And so to just get there and get your feet wet a bit and just smell the flowers of what being in the playoffs is like for a lot of these younger guys on the team, um, is exactly what they needed with Washington. The two guys up front, Ovechkin looked great in this series. Dylan Strome was, I would argue, the most noticeable player every night for the Capitals. Um,
Definitely, in my
just
opinion.
from
One
top
of
to
the more
bottom.
underrated players in the league. Like,
Yeah.
understandably, a lot of people are saying that about Alexi Protas, but man, there's a lot of people acting like Strom isn't the best player on the Capitals. And like
Mhm.
he's so noticeable out there every time he touches the ice.
Alexi
Great
Protas,
pickup.
I believe he did return last night for Washington, if I'm not mistaken, as well. So getting him back is a big addition for them. Yes, he did. He did return. So getting Protas back in the mix um,
That's big
definitely
for them.
does help. The big thing for Washington, and it was one, I think it was the one trade deadline move I made fun of the most because of the price for it, and that was Anthony Beauvillier for a second round pick. Anthony Beauvillier in this series had 1 goal and 4 assists. So point per game guy so far in the playoffs. So I look dumb for making fun of Washington for that one. They clearly
Yeah,
did their
wow.
homework, and Anthony Beauvillier has looked terrific for Washington.
Yeah, that's man, what a pickup. And like that's, there's been a lot of good deadline acquisitions, but like, everyone knew that Brad Marchand would be an effective pickup, right? Yeah, nobody had Anthony Beauvillier being one of the best deadline acquisitions on their bingo card. Like
Yeah.
I don't know if his parents would have had him in their top 5 for that. So the fact that he's been this good so far is huge for the Capitals. It's a great
Yeah.
pickup.
I don't really have much more to say on this series. Again, going back to, well, we'll talk more about Washington, who we know is playing Carolina. We'll
Yeah.
save that for those two teams, at least more so for uh, when we do the, what was it, preview for them. Yeah, that's word, preview. Um, anything else on Montreal? I mean, we kind of got
Just
exactly what we
really one
expected out of
thing.
them. The
I
young
guess
guys looked good.
kind of two things. one of them, I'm not sure if we've actually talked about it yet. Did we already talk last episode about the cross check on Cole Caulfield?
Yeah, we did discuss that
Okay,
one.
I was pretty sure we did, but if not, I did want to mention it. Okay, well
Yeah,
then you can go back and listen to our last episode if you want to hear about that cross check. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, I think the only other thing, and this isn't even necessarily to do with the series, is I oh, I'm racking my brain to think if there's anyone else, but there really isn't. Like if you barring injury, if you want free money next year, go out and put $10 on Ivan Demidov to win the Calder.
yeah.
Holy crap, what a talent. Looking
Is
that
it
good in
is
his
it crazy
first
to
few
say like
what
he?
2 games in the regular season, and then he looked great in the playoffs as well. And now he's going to get to actually, like, he probably doesn't know the names of all of his teammates yet. Like he's been
Mhm.
there for such a short time. It's been so hectic, and now he's going to get the offseason to train, get better, get acclimated with these guys and his line mates, actually figure out like the power play system that they're working instead of just figuring it out and going out there. Like he he's going to be an absolute beast next year for them.
Is it crazy to say he already almost looks like Montreal's best player? He looked
I
good.
I think
I'm
at
not gonna say
minimum,
most noticeable because for me it was still Suzuki because of
yeah.
he does everything all over, but in terms of, like, sheer talent,
I In
I still think
sheer
it's
raw
crazy.
talent, I think he is.
I think
Right
so, yeah.
now, overall play, at worst, I put him third, I think.
Yeah.
I think he's already that level. I think Suzuki's probably still one. I think Caulfield Demidov is pretty close.
Yeah. I would throw
But
Lane Hudson there, but he had a lot of bad defensive lapses, um,
yeah,
that I wasn't a fan of, and again, it's his first crack in the playoffs. It's against Washington, who is hitting everything in sight, and they're just big monsters out there, so
very
you
deep
can
team
never
as
really
well.
fault a rookie too much in their first go in the playoffs, like.
Yeah.
Last thing with Montreal, now that they are officially eliminated, we know that that was the final game of David Savard's career. Um, Only one Stanley Cup, right, with Tampa?
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
He assisted on the game 5 game-winning goal against the Canadiens, to win the cup. Passed
oh,
it to threw it right in front for a redirect for Ross Colton.
well, there we go. Um, but congrats to David Savard on a terrific career, and best of luck to him with whatever is next for him.
Yep, he retired right before the end of the season. I know we've already mentioned it. Alec Martinez and Pat Maroon retiring. Pat Maroon was actually at game 5 for the
Oh
Florida
yeah, he was
series,
there.
and
Yeah,
that was pretty cool to see. I believe he was also
rallying
at
the crowd.
game 4 or 5 in St. Louis,
St.
uh,
Louis. Yeah.
cheering for them as well. So it's fun to see him. He's going around. He's very loyal to the teams he's been on, and he's just a fun guy to have around. Like just love me some big rig.
Yeah. Um, We got 4 games on the go tonight on this Thursday. Well, let's talk about the one series that is not taking place today, but will take place tomorrow. The Winnipeg Jets and the St. Louis Blues. Winnipeg is now up 3-2 in this series. They do have a chance to close it out in St. Louis tomorrow. Um, what are your thoughts with this series so far?
This has
Where we're at
been
with
has this been the closest series, do you think?
it?
It like
No.
there's been a couple
Well,
of games that have kind of gotten away, but like there's been a couple on either side now, and like they both teams have looked so good. Like
mhm,
it even though the Jets have been so good this year, it does feel like a lot of people have it as a foregone conclusion that the winner of this goes on to lose the next round because they'll be who do you get to play after that? Oh, either the Colorado Avalanche or the Dallas Stars. Like
yeah,
just a brutal pull, but both of these teams have looked very good in my opinion, and in a series where we thought, or a lot of people would be forgiven for thinking, you know, the Jets have the advantage in net. Jordan Binnington's been very good for the Blues, and Hellebuck has played, I mean, just not great for the Jets. He stopped shots when he needs to, but there's still a lot going in that a guy of his skill level should be stopping.
Yeah, so with
And
Hellebuck,
I
it's
do
one of
think a
those
lot of
things
it is the
where
defense. But
yeah, so with the funny thing with Hellebuck is like two things can be true at once. And what those two things are is, you know, game 1 looked a little bit shaky, but kind of got it together near the end. Game 2, I thought it was fine. Game
yeah,
5 wasn't his best game, but again, he allowed 3, but could have easily been 1, could have been 2. That last one, I mean, fuck. Well, there's nothing you can do, and it's a scramble out front, and the puck pops out right to the guy's stick. Can't
yeah,
fault him on that one.
no,
Games 3 and 4 that they lost, he looked bad. But he's not it's different from last year where he's not the reason they lost those games. You look at game 3, 7-2. It's very tough to win a playoff game 2-1. I mean, you did do it in game 2, fair enough, but it's hard to do that back-to-back games. And
yeah,
then game 4, you lost 5-1. He would have had to go out there and put up a shutout for you to win. That's tough to do. It's possible, but again, it's tough to do. So, 2 rough games, but again, at the same time, he's not the reason that they lost.
yeah, yeah, 100%. Like their defense and just their defensive play at times has been. It's not even really bad. It just feels like St. Louis has kind of figured them out a little bit. Like, it's one of those times where, like, they don't even look like they're doing anything necessarily wrong. Just St. Louis has found this specific way to kind of carve through them at times. And it's really impressive to watch. But yeah, I definitely don't put many of the losses on Hellebuck. And the ones, if you want to, are often equally on the defense.
Yeah.
And not just the defenders, but like the defensive play of the forwards when you're back as well. It's I hope this game goes 7. I think a game 7 between these two teams would be deserved. It would be a lot of fun.
And I think it's definitely possible. And the biggest thing with Winnipeg is um you look, and again, I know a lot of misconducts and whatnot, but so far in the playoffs, through 5 games, St. Louis, second most penalty minutes, 118. Winnipeg Jets, number 1, 148 penalty
Wow.
minutes. Through 5 games, St. Louis's power play is currently going at 31.6%. So again, Hellebuck's not playing great, but at the same time, St. Louis is dominating on the power play. And I think it's a mixture of both. St. Louis's power play is looking very good right now, especially Cam Fowler, balling out. And Winnipeg's penalty kill isn't good. It's very bad right now. And that's the perfect mix for St. Louis when you get a power play. You know, you're scoring a lot on them. So I think that's something that Winnipeg really needs to address if, especially going into game 6, because Mark Scheifele's status is unknown for game 6. He might play, he might not. Gabriel Velarde is back, but you'd like to just win that in 6 and get that little bit of extra rest to let those guys rest up. And then figure out your penalty kill and stop taking penalties because you're getting destroyed because of it.
Yeah, and I do think there is a bit of a silver lining there in that they are the most penalized team in the playoffs so far, and that if you're gonna have a problem, I feel like that's one of the better ones to have. If you have, if you're Edmonton, you have bad goaltending. What the hell do you do about that? Putting
Yeah.
Calvin Pickard in hope like that. That's really all you can do. If you need to score more goals, well, easier said than done, right? If you need to take less penalties, that's one of the few things that you can look at and be like, we can very actively do our best to fix this. Like, if they can get through this series and into the next series, whoever they're facing, like, if they can be like, hey, let's a lot of the same, but like, if we can cut down on those way after what they're going into game 6 tonight, right? After 5 games, they've got, what'd you say, 140 some penalty minutes? That's
Yeah.
absurd. If we can cut that down to 2/3 of that, hell, that's a lot of minutes. You might be able to cut that to half. Like, if you
Mhm.
can cut that down that much, that, now, even if they're still scoring, the other teams are scoring 31% of goals on the power play against you. That's a lot less power play goals because of all those less penalties, and they're 5-on-5. Obviously, they're up even with all those numbers. They're up 3-2 in the series. So clearly they're doing very well in other areas, 5-on-5 scoring and defense. So it it makes sense that if they would, shore up on their discipline, that they would be in a nice spot going forward in these playoffs.
I that's perfectly said right there. That's
And
a great way to look at it and put it that way. So
yeah,
um,
and they would have
totally
to
agree.
do that anyway, because there's a good chance they're going to play Colorado. You do not want to take a lot of penalties against them. Dallas is probably going to beat the crap out of you if you take a lot of penalties. Hell, they might end up, if they get through there, they might end up facing Vegas or the Oilers. Yeah, you want to take a lot of penalties against Connor McDavid? I don't
Yeah,
think so.
no one
So
does.
you might as well get in the habit of maybe tucking your elbows a little bit more sooner
Yeah,
than
yeah.
later.
Um, but we'll kind of see how that series wraps up as Game 6 does take place tomorrow in St. Louis. Winnipeg obviously looking to close the series out. St. Louis looking to force a Game 7. Home team has won every game so far in this series. So we'll see if St. Louis continues that trend. Again, both teams are looking very good. I did
Yeah,
pick Winnipeg in 6, but it is kind of looking like this series might actually go 7 games here. And once it hits Game 7, anything can happen.
anything can happen. Anyone can be the hero. Yoel Kiviranta can get a hat trick. Who knows? I I think I picked the Blues. Did I pick the Blues in 7?
I think you did, yeah.
I know I picked the Blues. I think it was 6 or 7. Uh,
Actually, I think you did Blues in 7.
yeah.
You
Binnington
did do
hype
Blues
train.
in 7. Yeah. So you
We
well,
could be
we
right.
both got a chance. We both got a chance here still. Um
I want to
let's
see it go
move on
7
to
regardless of who wins. This is one of the series outside of the Battle of Florida that I've caught the most of, that I've watched the most of, and it's just every game I've watched has just been so fun. Like, I just
it's
want
been
to
a
see
very
more of
fun
these
series.
teams face off.
Yeah, it has been a very entertaining series, especially, again, when we've talked about how good St. Louis is, but considering it is a team that just squeaked into the playoffs by 1 point compared to the President's Trophy winning team, it is a lot closer of a series than we would normally be expecting, and that just shows how many good teams there are in this league and why the Stanley Cup Playoffs one of the most it's the hardest trophy to win, um, because of exactly situations like
Yeah.
this.
And I also think this series might have the most fun home crowds. There's, Toronto and Ottawa, they're very close. There's a couple of fans mixing over. The Battle of Florida, there's quite a few Florida fans in Tampa. There's quite a few Tampa fans in Florida. Even in the Metro matchups, there was a bit of that, but not a lot of crossover between St. Louis, Missouri, and Winnipeg, Manitoba, right? So, like, not upwards of 99% of the people in either of those buildings are home fans. And so in this series in particular, it's really every game has that aura of, oh fuck, this team's in this guy's barn and it's going crazy. Like,
I
it doesn't hasn't felt that to that degree in a lot of the other series. Maybe the Oilers Kings series has had a good bit of that too, but I think it's
Mhm.
been most noticeable in this series.
I can't remember exactly when it was, but it was in Winnipeg, and because they do the whiteout, and they showed a St. Louis fan who was wearing a Blues jersey, but they're wearing a white one. I was like, man, you gotta fucking go out and buy a home St. Louis one. You can't be wearing the white and part of the whiteout because now you just blend in. You look like a knob. So, um,
Isn't there some sort of rules? Like, don't they have like some of the ushers like telling you need to wear a certain amount of white or something? I feel like I heard that somewhere.
I don't think so.
Like, I thought they had some sort of, like, kind of slight policing to, like, to make it so it's, like, kind of more of a whiteout. I don't fully remember, but
I don't think I could be wrong. I don't think so though, but we've seen some teams do some crazy things. So who who knows? Honestly,
yeah. It would be very funny though, the whiteout, it's all that, and then you see this, like, clump of 4 blue jerseys in a row just sitting in there, and the camera goes to them every time they score because 'cause they're the only guys cheering in there,
yeah, yeah.
but
But moving along
great
here,
series.
um, we got 4 games on the go tonight. All series are at a score of 3-2. Let's start off. Let's just start with the earliest games and work our way to the later one. Um, Toronto Maple Leafs, Ottawa Senators, Game 6 in Ottawa. Toronto had a 3-0 series lead. It is now 3-2. Ottawa took Game 4 in overtime. Jake Sanderson. And Game 5, was it 4-0? 4-0, yeah.
I believe it was 4-0.
They shut out the Toronto Maple Leafs in elimination game. I think that's now Toronto in their last, what are they, 1-12 in their last 13 elimination games?
Sounds about right.
When I say elimination games, it's games where they can win the series or they could be eliminated. It's just any
Okay.
time a team is at the brink of being eliminated.
Yeah, not
whether it
just
is
their
them
elimination
or
games.
yeah. Um,
I remember when overtime in game 4 was happening, we were texting back and forth, and I was so close to texting you, Jake Sanderson's gonna score, and then a couple minutes later he did. Every single time the puck came to him, he threw it on net. He passed it maybe once the whole overtime. Dude was just, the puck comes to him, I'm throwing it on net. It'll go in eventually. And it did. Like, that's one of those times where a guy just needs to kind of take it into his own hands and be like, yeah, something good's gonna happen. What's the worst that happens if I throw it at the net?
yeah.
Like, that was real good play by him. And I'm just gonna ask you, do you think Ottawa comes back and wins the series?
Um, I mean, I picked them in 7. I didn't expect them to.
You didn't
If they are
expect a
to win in
reverse
7,
sweep.
I didn't expect a reverse sweep. I mean, I would love it. I think that'd be awesome for Ottawa. That would be just something so incredible for that franchise, that fan base, those players. Um, no, I genuinely do think they win tonight. I think now that you've got all the momentum, Allmark's been looking great. You've got Toronto on the ropes where when they start to get in this point, we have seen them scramble before. Could be different circumstances with Craig Berube, don't get me wrong. But I think Ottawa, all that momentum back in your home barn, I think they do win. Um, but then Toronto probably gets game 7. Again, anything can happen in game 7, but it's just so hard to pull off a reverse sweep and win 4 in a row. And with how good this Toronto team is, if there was a team to collapse, it would be them, but I don't see it happening in the end. I think it's
Yeah.
just too much of an uphill battle for Ottawa in the end.
Yeah. I think Toronto probably wins tonight.
You think they
But
close it out?
I think they close it out, but I do think Toronto wins this series. They're just too good of a team to drop 4 in a row to this Senators
Mhm.
team. They, they've been here before. Like, obviously everyone talks forever about how bad Toronto's been in the playoffs, but you know, they've got this experience. How many times can you drop the ball before eventually you're a little desensitized to it and you're like, all right, everyone thinks we're gonna go fuck it up again. They also did last year and the year before, except for that one year, but also the several years before that. At a certain point, they're gonna be like, I don't know, fuck it, whatever. What's the worst that happens? They're mad at us for the 6th time out of the last 7 years. Like,
Yeah.
at a certain point, I think they're just gonna fuck it, whatever. They're haters gonna hate, and I think they're gonna go out there and they're gonna be just fine. I think Mitch Marner's been great in this series, especially. and he's going to continue to ball out because he is in the last year of his deal. He is the big fish going into this free agency, and if he has a great playoff, he has such a complete game. The only question you can have about that player, maybe other than physicality, which that's not why you're getting a Mitch Marner, is does he show up in the playoffs? Which historically, despite a lot of the narratives, he has in the past in playoffs. But if he
Mhm.
really goes off this year in the playoffs, going into free agency, like that, that's the biggest question mark around him put to rest for a lot of teams. So I think I think he's going to continue to be one of the most noticeable guys out there. This is the best goaltending in my lifetime that I think I've ever seen the Maple Leafs get. Like I for the majority of the teams in the league, just over my entire lifetime, you say a team and it's just pick a goal, Calgary Flames, Bika Kiprasov, the Sharks, Evgeny Nabokov, every team has that goalie. There isn't one for Toronto. Pick a goalie. I don't know, Curtis Joseph. He didn't play for them like in my lifetime, but like I know he played there. Like who am I supposed to say? Vesa Toskala, Ilya Samsonov. Like they haven't had a big star. I guess Freddie Anderson. I guess would probably be
Yeah.
one of the best answers, but like they haven't had that guy that
Like James
has.
Reimer.
Yeah, like
I
maybe
mean,
maybe
like,
it's the Rhyme Minister. Like I think Stolarz has been incredible for them, and I think this is this is one of the best chances they've had, and I think they're going to be able to close it out. I like the Senators team. I think it's just a year or two too early. I think they're a couple bigger acquisitions away.
well, and I think with Ottawa, I think there's circumstance where they could win this series or could have, but it's the fact that you go down 3-0. It's so hard to
It just
pull off that reverse
yeah,
sweep. That's why
it just
we've only
never happens
seen
really. What, four
f-
times?
4 or 5. Very rarely do we ever see a reverse sweep, and it's because again in the plus, it's just tough to go out there and just pull off 4 straight at that point. Um, and again, could they do it? Yes, but it's such an uphill battle. And again, with this Toronto team, like we've talked about, some of the best coaching they've had in a long time, best goaltending in forever that they've been getting. Um, I just don't see a world in which they lose. If there was a team to get reverse swept this year, it would be Toronto because why not? Of course. But I don't see it happening. I do see them. I'm predicting in 7, but they easily could just close it out tonight and put all those rumors to bed. So
Yeah, yeah. I think they're going to close it out, but it you know we have every reason to believe they will. But at the end of the day, it's the Toronto Maple Leafs. Who knows?
yep,
I have a bit more faith than them in them to not blow a playoff series than I do for the Buffalo Sabres to make the playoffs because I've seen it happen once where they got past the first round. But,
yeah,
you know, at a certain point we got to see it again, right?
yeah. It's got to happen at some point here, but obviously we'll be coming back to all of these because well, by the time we record next episode, all round 1 matchups will be done. Um,
Yeah, I guess. Um and also for those wondering, there have been exactly 4 uh 3
it is 4.
nothing comeback reverse
We
sweeps
we
in
don't have to
NHL
talk about
history.
what they are. We can just say that there's 4. That's fine. We can leave it there.
Oh, you don't want to talk about it?
No.
You don't even want to talk
No.
about like the most recent one?
Fuck off. No. I don't. Actually,
There
fun fact.
there's not a sports team in history that doesn't have demons.
Yeah, that is true. That is true.
Al- Although Boston sports fans have had it too good for too long. I'm always saying this.
Yeah, might get a first overall
Pretty much
pick
any
on Monday.
pretty much any sport.
Imagine that. June, I don't know what day the draft is, but June whatever. first overall pick, and you see the Boston Bruins walking up to make that pick. Ooh, baby.
Stop.
Ooh, baby. Could happen. Could happen.
If they want first overall pick, they have to trade Pasternak. It's only fair. They can't just go and get a new one and also have him and the rest of their players.
They might find a way. But for time's sake, we do need to continue moving on.
Of course.
So your final prediction, because we'll do final predictions, because again, we know this series will be done. You have Toronto in 6 here. I have Toronto in 6 as our final predictions. Moving on to the next game on the go tonight, the Minnesota Wild and the Vegas Golden Knights. Vegas is up 3-2 in the series, looking to close it out tonight. Minnesota is looking to send it to Game 7. In Vegas, Minnesota's up 2-1. Things are looking pretty good. You lose Game 4 in overtime, and you're on the verge of winning Game 5, and you're about a millimeter off, and you end up losing that one in overtime as well, and find yourself in the hole. What do you think of this one?
I really believed for a good bit there that Minnesota was going to pull it off. If they won that overtime and they were up 3-2, I would have them winning. But I think that was the moment. That was the game where it's kind of decided. I haven't heard if Philip Gustafsson is going to be healthy for this game, because he played like 2 periods of Game 5 and then was pulled due to illness, I believe, which is got to be one of the most frustrating things to happen. Like, you're not even injured, you're sick. That's got to be so annoyingly frustrating. I definitely don't think that cost them the game. I think Fleury played fine. I see Vegas winning this now. I think 2 games against Vegas in a row, it's doable, but I just don't see it happening. I think Vegas. Where is this game? This game will be in Minnesota, right?
This one will be in Minnesota, yeah.
Maybe they get one more game. Maybe. I think more than likely Vegas wins it in 7, probably. But I definitely have Vegas winning the series overall at this point. I would love for Minnesota to prove me wrong.
I'm sticking where I was from the beginning. My original pick was Minnesota in 7, prime position to see that happen. I'm sticking with Minnesota in 7. I think this is a series where both teams have looked really good at times, and it's not even that the other team necessarily looks bad. It's just we have now seen both these teams be able to kick it to that next level when they need to pull out a game or to maintain a lead or whatever it is. It's been so evenly matched. Again, we've seen 2 overtime games now take place. Again, this is one could go either way. We could see Vegas close it out tonight. Could see Vegas in 7. Could see Minnesota in 7, because these teams are just so evenly matched. But I'm just going to stick with where I've been from the beginning. Minnesota in 7. I do believe firmly, and I think it's pretty unanimous, that they have the best player in this series in Kirill Kaprizov. I don't think anyone can really argue that.
No, nobody should be. Like, he's been, like, not even just this series. I mean, who in these playoffs has been better than him? Like, McDavid. If you want to throw Draisaitl in there, sure.
And it's like, if you're behind those 2 guys, okay,
yeah.
fine.
Yeah,
like,
sure.
There's no shame in that whatsoever.
Maybe I don't know if he's been this incredible, but his points look great. Adrian Kempe
has actually been very good too. Yeah,
but like, he's got to be top 5 in the playoffs at the moment for sure. Like, he's been so good.
Every game he has been excelling, and he's proving again why he's one of the top in the league. Not a whole lot to talk about. Like, it's obviously a big ball buster for Minnesota. when you get that goal from Ryan Hart with like a minute left in Game 5.
Yeah,
But
that was rough. That was rough for them.
comes
I
back,
I
and at
I
that
really
point,
hope.
momentum's just gone. It's tough to bounce back from that.
Yeah, I really hope you're right. I hope so badly that I'm wrong and you're right, and they come back and win this in 7. This Minnesota team, on top of Vegas being a pretty easy team to cheer against, uh, this Minnesota team has been a lot of fun to watch and cheer for. Like, they've got some exciting players. They've got Fleury on the back end. This could potentially be the last game where he's on the bench for an NHL game ever
Yeah,
tonight.
yeah, could be it.
So, like, they've got that going for them. Like, they've got young guys like Zeev Bium he's been playing in most of these games, right? Like, he's still been
He's
drawing
been
in.
getting better. Yeah, rough first game. We talked about it, but it's been getting better.
Like, they really got
That's how
everything.
many
and
games he's exactly played.
and we talk a lot about Kaprizov, and rightfully so, but a guy who's been setting up for a lot of the goals, Matt Boldy, like, a lot of those passes beat the defenseman. Boldy still has to beat the goalie on a lot of them, and man, he's been freaking torching. He's been torching the Vegas goalies pretty good over this series as well. So,
Mm-hmm. Zeev played games 1, 2, 4. He did not play game 5.
okay,
But again, I think both these teams have looked really good. Whichever one we're talking about next week going into round 2, I think has a very good chance to win that series, whether they're against Edmonton or LA. I think both these teams have looked really good and could definitely go on a run, but one of them's got to pull it out here, whether it's tonight or game 7. One of them's got to get the job done to move on. And I've been having a lot of fun watching this series, so I'm definitely looking forward to this game tonight and seeing how it goes. Because again, it's so tough to predict these games because both these teams are just really good, fun hockey teams.
yeah, completely agree. And yeah, I don't really have much more to say. Like, it's just been a fun. This has just been a fun ass series to watch.
Yeah, it really has. It hasn't had the. It's just good hard hockey. Like we don't really have. There's not much ref controversy. There's no real
I haven't heard
nasty
of really
bullshit.
any
It's
from this
just
series.
it's just
It's been great,
hard. Yeah, it's just hard hockey between two very skilled teams, and
which is interesting because
sometimes those are some of the funnest series.
yeah, and it's interesting because in the past Vegas, one of those teams that gets a little bit of extra treatment, being the shiny new toy of the NHL, being so good, and Minnesota's kind of been a little bit of the middle child in
The
the
forgotten
Central
one.
for a little bit. So, it I would not have been shocked by this point if we were talking about, man, Petrangelo probably should have been suspended for something, but he didn't, or he should have got a big penalty, but he didn't. And
Mm-hmm.
no, none of that. Like, it's just been great.
Yeah, right there with you. Next up, the third game taking place tonight is Game 6 between the Dallas Stars and the Colorado Avalanche. Dallas currently leading this series by a score of 3-2. Does Dallas close it out tonight, or does Colorado force a Game 7 back to Dallas? This has been a really wild series between these teams, and
I think a
it's been
lot of
entertaining.
people,
It's unpredictable.
yeah, I think a lot of people have this as their best series of the first round, and like, no arguments here. It's been incredible hockey. I think Dallas closes it out tonight. I think as much as the idea of guys like Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar being back against the wall, as scary as that is, I almost think that the idea of those guys in a game 7 is scarier to the Stars, and they're going to play like their lives depend on it because they don't want to get beaten that game 7.
Mm-hmm.
I think they're a team that they've got enough history, they've got enough veteran presence and experience, and they're such a deep team. I think they're going to pull it out. I don't think it's going to be an easy game. I think it's probably going to be a little bit higher of a scoring game. Not crazy high, but like I think maybe 5-3, 5-4, maybe an empty netter in there.
Something like that, yeah.
I think one of the teams is going to pull out ahead a bit earlier, and the other team is going to, all right, we got to take some risks and we got to try and catch up, and it's going to open the game up a little bit instead of teams playing the traditional stingy defense playoff hockey. And I think it's going to be
Yeah.
a real fun game. I'm very excited.
Yeah, I think in this series again, we go back to goalies. Both goalies have been, um, very good in this series overall for the most part between Blackwood and Ottinger. Both goalies pulled in the series, but again, wasn't really due to them playing bad. It was just circumstantial by the team and where the game was at that point. Two defensemen I want to talk about. The first one, Thomas Harley, has been incredible for Dallas in the playoffs so far here. Obviously, a lot of pressure being put on him as no Heiskanen, so Thomas Harley, next man up to lead the charge. In this series, he has 2 goals and 2 assists through 5 games. Has been incredible on the back end for Dallas, and just can't say enough good things about what kind of defenseman he is really showing himself to be for them. And on the other side is Cale Makar. Only 2 assists so far in this series, a -4. No points in the last 3 games for Cale Makar. This is a guy who consistently puts up the most points by defensemen every year, it seems, and he has not done that the last 3 games here.
Yeah. Yeah, they are such a top heavy team in Colorado, and they need those top guys to show up. And it's not like he hasn't been trying, but he those game breakers, those elite of the elite, the guys that are so good they can make other top 20 players in the league look silly like him. They got to find a way to make it happen. And if Colorado is to win this game and end up coming back in the series, it will have to be on the back of him, McKinnon, and I'll even throw Marty Necas in there because he has been incredible for them since they got him. So
yeah, I completely agree. At this point now, if you are Colorado, we know you spent like that. They spent their entire season basically throughout it, making their team deeper, bringing these extra pieces. But at the end of the day, you have your studs up front. Those are the guys you've relied on all year. They got to get it done for you. Gabriel Landeskog, I think, is really starting to come into his own being back now. Did score his first goal
yeah,
since
that
coming
as well.
back in game 4. Yeah, game 4
I
for
think
Colorado.
did
Which
he not
was
come back in game 3, the first home game for the Avs?
yeah, but he scored in game 4.
Oh, he scored in game 4. I see.
Yeah, scored in game 4. Terrific shot as well, and that really got the team going. But yeah, I mean, you look at Dallas, everybody's rolling for that team from your first line down to the fourth line. The defense is stepping up when they need to. They're able to shut down some of these top guys on Colorado. And Jake Ottinger is playoff Jake Ottinger. He goes out there and he does his thing. And so I did have Colorado picked in 6 to win this, but the way it's looking right now, I'm leaning Dallas ends it tonight.
Yeah.
I think they're looking at it, and
I think they need to.
again, you don't want to go to game 7 with you don't want to ever go to game 7, but especially against this Colorado team, is not very enticing. You're looking at it of, you win tonight, not only do you get that little bit of extra rest, there's a very good chance you get Heiskanen back for the start of round 2, and you're that much closer to getting Jason Robertson back. I think that's a lot of extra motivation for them of let's wrap this up, and now we're into round 2 and we're going to be getting our best defenseman back and one of our best forwards. And I think that kind of motivation is really big for a team that's in that spot.
Yeah. Man, that's a good team, dude. Holy shit. Like
Like the fact they're up
like
3-2 without Robertson and Heiskanen
that's
is
so
impressive.
goofy. How did I forget about that? The fact, like I think the most popular cup winner that people voted for this year, I think, was the Avs.
The Avs, yeah,
If
it was
they
Colorado in the
best
West and Tampa in the
defenseman
East. Like,
and one of their best forwards, and if they beat them in 6, like obviously
yeah,
there's a lot of great teams, and like it wouldn't be insane if they got beat, but like if the Stars win tonight, can we just pencil in Panthers Stars in the final? Like, my God, some of these teams are just the way they're built. They just waves of talent, like
yeah,
just insane.
yeah. It's again what Dallas has been doing is nothing short of impressive. Again, just when you look at who's out and who's been stepping up for them, um, it's impressive. And a big thing is if Colorado wins tonight and it goes to Game 7, Peter DeBoer behind the Dallas bench, as a head coach in the NHL, has yet to lose in a Game 7. So if Colorado wants to win this series, they're going to have to do something that no other team has done before, and that's defeat Peter DeBoer in a Game 7. So something to keep an eye on with that. But yeah, we're the same. We both think Dallas ends it tonight.
I'm
Crazy
thinking
as that
so.
is, but
Uh, man, watch Nathan McKinnon's shot counter throughout this, and if they end up winning through Game 7,
mhm.
like you would not be crazy for putting $1 on him to have 10 shots or more, like legitimately. Like in
Yeah,
these games where he's just feeling himself, he's one of those guys where his shot count is just freaking bonkers. Like he's right up there with guys like Brady Kachuk, where like some games he just shoots and he doesn't
it's
give a
just
shit what's
everything on
happening,
net.
just
Yeah,
everything. So I mean,
yeah, definitely something
not
to keep an eye
not
on for sure.
exactly a hard hitting journalism. Say watch out for Nathan McKinnon going into this game, but man,
That's what
it's
Colorado
gonna be a
needs.
fun
So
one.
if Colorado's going to win tonight, I don't see it being a you know third and fourth liner putting up the goals. Like it's going to have to come from the top guys, and on top of Nathan McKinnon, Cale Makar. I mean, this is a guy who's probably going to win another Norris. He puts up the most points as a defenseman. No points in 3 games, and hasn't looked the greatest defensively. He's going to have a monster game, I think, if Colorado's going to want to win this one, because
Yeah, absolutely.
you
Like
need him. You need the best defenseman in the world to be the best defenseman in the world for you when you need it. So,
yeah,
um,
we've already mentioned that we're gonna talk about it in the next episode, but like Cale Makar, we also know both him and McKinnon are uh two of the 3 finalists for the Ted Lindsay, the best player in the league voted on by the players. Like everyone in the league knows how good these guys are.
mhm.
They need to go out there and be those guys that got nominated and
Go out there and get
just
it done.
just go out there and take over this game.
Yeah,
Like
totally agree.
you are so right. You're not going to win this game off of Miles Wood having a great game, you know? Like
Yeah,
it's just not super likely the way these teams are built.
yeah. Um, Moving on to the final series of the night, the Edmonton Oilers and the LA Kings. Edmonton is up in this series 3-2, going back home as well. Same situation as well, actually, they're the only team that could end it tonight that is at home. Vegas is on the road, Dallas is on the road, and Toronto's on the road. So Edmonton, the only team with home ice advantage, looking to close it out tonight.
What
I think
a
they
what a
do.
comeback.
I think they do. I said it in what was it when I was texting you? Would have been Game 4, LA up 2-1, and I was talking to a buddy, and I said, I have never seen a playoff series where a team is up 2-1 in a Game 4, and it's a must win for them. LA needed to win that Game 4. This is a team where, again, I think LA's been the better team 80% of this series. But again, when you're going up against this Edmonton team, You can't sit back. You can't get comfortable with where you're at. You need to keep your foot on the gas. You can't be making dumb turnovers or prioritizing, and if you're Quentin Byfield, prioritizing an empty net goal as opposed to just winning the game.
Yeah, that's
Again, LA's
that was a
the better team
Chell
on paper,
mistake. That was playing
and
Chell on rookie mode. Like
yeah,
he wanted the point. He wanted to do that. You just gotta clear the puck, and instead,
just get it out and win the game. And he tried
yeah,
to get a little too cute with it. That was game 3. Edmonton ends up winning that one. Or that was game 4. Oh, never mind. Yeah, that was game 4. But they did have the lead in game 3 and ended up losing that one as well. It's a team that keeps shooting themselves in the foot, and you can't be doing that, especially against McDavid, Draisaitl, and Bouchard. Where
this is
the
the
Bouchard
team.
roller coaster has been at an all-time high this year, from the highs to the lows.
Yeah,
It's
absolutely. Yeah, this Oilers team is easily, in my mind, number one team where you have to play full 60 minutes. If you play a really good 50, 58 minutes and you slack off for those other 2 minutes, you better have a huge lead because the Oilers can put up 3 goals in 2 minutes if you're not doing your best.
yeah.
3, 4. Like they have that talent. Everybody knows it. So they got to go out there and they got to play complete hockey in LA, and they're one of the best teams at doing that, but they just give the Oilers an inch and they'll take a mile. Like,
And we know that Edmonton went to Calvin Pickard in game 3, and that they've won all games with Calvin Pickard in the net. But the thing is when we were talking about the Kings, it was like, oh, best home ice team in the league, this, and this. But on the flip side of it, the fact you only finished second in your division means you're probably not a very good road team. And to now be down 3-2 in the series, going into Edmonton, which over recent years I think has become one of the hardest buildings to play in as a road team. So you're not a good road team. You're going into Edmonton. You're down 3-2.
not liking their
The
odds.
Kings are going to need to have damn near a perfect game to pull this one out. Darcy Kemper's stats don't look great, but again, I don't put any of this on him because a lot of these goals, what is he supposed to do? He stood on his head in credit. Like, what was the overtime game? His numbers was like
He
the
was
shots.
the
Edmonton
only
had
guy on the
17
team.
shots.
He was the only guy on the
in-
team who looked like he wanted to win that game when it went to OT. Like
Leon Draisaitl, that was his first playoff overtime goal. Fun fact, just like Ovi.
That's so goofy that we're in 2025 and both of those guys just did that. How is that possible? I would have, if you asked me before this podcast how many he has against the Kings alone, I would have said like 4. Like,
Yeah.
that's so goofy.
But it's just one of those ones where LA was in the driver's seat. They just had to keep going, and they found a way to lose it by themselves. That's what it comes down to for them.
Yep. The other team, even they're, notoriously so, don't have good goaltending, and they really haven't been getting good goaltending. Like, it didn't come out of nowhere and they got it. Like, Pickard's been fine at best for the Oilers, but they just, as one of the best defensive teams in the league, they can't keep the puck out of their net.
Yeah,
like
that's
we knew it going
into
into the series. We knew it going into the last several series against these same teams. We knew it after game 1, 2, 3, and 4. Like they have to shut down McDavid and Draisaitl, and they haven't.
Yeah, they were able to for a game, and that's really about it. Again, if LA comes out tonight, and again, I think they have to play a damn near perfect game to win. But if they do, they could easily win it in in 7, back on home ice. But this is the big barrier right here for them. Is you got to get over it here. You got to find a way to win in Edmonton. Edmonton was able to steal one in your barn. You got to do it to them now. And if you lose, well, you have no one to blame but yourself. It's not like you were outplayed. It's not like you were dominated. You lost it on your own. And that's a much different storyline than the last 3 years. The last 3 years, it's just Edmonton's been the better team. Edmonton Stars took over and won it. This year would be completely different, where LA was the better team. They controlled the majority of the series, but they find a way to lose still.
Yeah, you're right on the money with it. Like, there's really nothing, especially because this is the 4th year in a row we've seen it. Like, there's nothing new we can really say. Like, yeah, in the past they even had the excuse of, they're a young team. Byfield will get there, like they're up and coming, but they're a good team now and they just need to go out and win. But they gotta shut down those top Oilers, and it's all going to come down to that tonight. And I just don't see it happening. If they do, Game 7 is going to be must see. But even if they do win it at home ice, I still think Game 7 McDavid, I don't think there's a guy on the Kings who can deal with that.
No,
it would have to be a huge collapse in the Oilers' crease.
It would have to be a up again for LA. Probably at this point now, considering how much momentum you've given Edmonton, it's got to be 2 perfect games. But again, the situation they put themselves in, they did it to themselves. I don't see them.
Yeah,
I had them originally winning in 7, but I don't see them even getting past tonight. It's gonna be a long plane ride home for them after the game.
Yeah, I agree, but we love watching Game 7, so if they push it, no complaints here.
Yeah, all for it. Worth noting, all of these games taking place tonight, these last 4 that we've talked about. If any of the teams that are downwind, whether that be Ottawa, Minnesota, Colorado, or LA, will be Game 7s on Saturdays. And there's nothing better than a playoff Game 7 on a Saturday. So hopefully at least we can get a couple Game 7s on a Saturday.
So good.
That would be pretty devastating to have a Saturday where potentially no playoff hockey even. Maybe they would start a round 2 series at that point, but
man, I don't know. Oh man, I was kind of pulling for Edmonton in this Game 6 a little bit, but I hope that goes to 7. I actually me and my wife got invited by some friends to go to, I believe it's called Calgary Beer Fest on Saturday. We're going to a beer fest midday, and then we're going out for drinks afterwards. And you know what? Doing that for a few hours and then going and watching going with some Flames fans to watch an Oilers Game 7 would be very fun on a Saturday evening.
That would be pretty. Yeah, I mean, it doesn't get much better than that at that point.
Have to find a good sports bar. We better get at least 2 Game 7s.
Yeah, I'm hoping for at least 2. I'm hoping we can at least get 2 because, again, nothing better than it, right?
Yeah. I think that's pretty much everything we have as far as news. One thing we didn't, we obviously mentioned, but I don't know if we mentioned this part of it, but Aaron Ekblad being suspended 2 games for the bit of the forearm hit on Hagel. Obviously, his first game of that suspension was the Game 5 where Florida won the series. So he will actually be suspended Game 1 of Florida versus either Toronto or Ottawa. So he will be out for a game in round 2 as well.
Yeah. I guess we didn't mention that, but it's good to put that out there. To wrap up this episode, Braden, for you, I have a blind ranking.
A blind
ranking? The category for this is I have 5 current goalies that were in the Stanley Cup playoffs this year. So there was 16 possible goalies. Because I only did actual technically starters, not just anyone that's appeared. So I've got 5 goalies, and you're going to rank them from 1 to 5 on who you would trust most in the net for your team in a Game 7. Sticking on the
All right.
topic of Game 7. So number 1, the
I
goalie you
already
trust the most, and number 5, the goalie you trust the least in a Game
okay.
7.
I love this. I also know that you put this together, which means I do think that you're going to do something specific. I'm not going to say it beforehand, but I will mention it after to see if you did do it. I think you're going to do this thing. You're going to screw me a bit, but we'll see. Is this starting goalies going into the playoffs? Like, would this be? I don't know if he's going to be on the list, but would it be Stuart Skinner instead of Calvin Pickard?
Yeah, it's who's was technically like a designated starting goal. Like Skinner's still
Right. So
technically the
still
starter of the
Montembeau
Oilers, but
for and everything.
yeah,
Okay. Okay.
exactly. Yeah. The
I don't know if
first
that
goalie
changes much, but
is Logan Thompson.
ooh, Logan Thompson. Logan Thompson for a Game 7. Very good this year. Not a ton of experience beyond that. I don't have we ever seen him in a Game 7? Probably not. He's a good goalie. He's been good on defensive teams though. I mean, who's in the playoffs this year? There's a lot of good there's a lot of good goalies. I'm going to put him at 4.
Gonna put Logan Thompson at 4. Next goalie up, Jacob Markstrom.
Markstrom. You see, there's arguments that you could put him at a place like 5 just because trust in that Game 7, like he could be incredible, but he could also absolutely collapse. Like he's one of the most hot or cold goalies in the league. But I do think he shows up more often than not in the playoffs. There's a lot of really good goalies in the playoffs this year though, so I'm going to say 3.
3 for Jacob Markstrom. Next goalie, Connor Hellebuck.
Connor Hellebuck. Basically the same thing as Markstrom, but almost more so. Oh, he has not been good in the playoffs. He has not been this near the same guy, but he's been so good in the past in the regular season. I don't know if have we ever even seen him in a Game 7?
I'm not 100% sure. So
He's one of the goalies that seems to the most in the league get affected by the mental pressure. Kind of that Toronto effect almost that he lets it get to him, but in a Game 7, I mean, I still think I gotta put him at 2.
Connor Hellebuck at 2.
I can't put him at 5.
I know I respect that. Next goalie, Jake Ottinger.
Oh well, now you've done it. Now you've put me in a rough situation. The thing I thought you were gonna do, I think, is probably happening, and I think you're gonna goof me, but I don't know for sure. But I think the rankings I have, I think there's still 1, 2. I think there's 2 goalies that I would put 1 above everyone you've said and Ottinger. So I don't love it, but I'm gonna have to put Jake Ottinger at number 5. I do not love that placement.
Ottinger, 5. So that means the goalie you're putting at number 1 to trust most in a Game 7 is Darcy Kemper.
Darcy Kemper. I mean, he has been good. I don't think he should be number 1 on this list, but he should be in the top 3 for sure.
Top 3, yeah. I think the dagger was the well. Again, blind rankings are tough, right? Like you could have put Hellebuck at 5, and from what we've seen, it would have made sense. But there's the high upside with him. So
yeah, the one thing that I wasn't sure if you were going to do, I figured because I obviously wanted to leave number 1 open for Vasilevsky or for Binnington if he showed up. I was going to put Binnington at 1 in a Game 7. I think he turns it on. And so I had to keep that spot open for one of those 2 guys. And I figured, honestly, Kemper was better than I thought. I thought you were going to save either Vasilevsky or like Calvin Pickard or Stuart Skinner for the final goalie.
I did originally have Binnington on the list. I had him as the second goalie to come out, but I switched it to Jacob
Yeah.
instead. But I didn't have Vasilevskiy because I knew that would have been the one. That's kind of the unanimous one. So I didn't
Yeah.
include him on here.
Yeah.
But
So-
overall, honestly not a
Not
terrible.
If I'm looking at them and know where they are, I would probably go like, oh, who even goes number one there? Like, probably Ottinger.
For me, it would have been Ottinger. Yeah.
I think Ottinger, Kemper. Who else do we have? Hellebuck, Markstrom,
Probably
and
Hellebuck, Markstrom, then Thompson. Yeah.
yeah, that might be it. Depending on how you feel about Hellebuck, you can put him. Hellebuck, you can literally put anywhere. I don't think there's a wrong answer for him. He could be 1 or 5.
Go to Game 7, and Hellebuck puts up a 35 save shutout.
And who would be surprised? Like he's going to be up for the Hart probably this year. Like,
yeah,
like of course he can. It's just, will he? Because he gets into his head sometimes in the playoffs, and we notoriously so goaltending in hockey is by far the most mental position in the game, and like you got to be in the right headspace for it. Like, if you get tilted, it all falls apart, which is why it's so crazy that Binnington is so good in those high pressure games, because he's a steel trap in those games, and then regular season against the San Jose Sharks, he'll lose his freaking mind. Like, he picks the weirdest times to lose it, but when he needs to, he's on.
Yeah. But that will
I also definitely expected a Ullmark in there somewhere, and I had no idea where I would put him.
Didn't even cross my mind, honestly, for Ullmark.
Oh, get his ass.
But that will wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, hope you all enjoyed. If you want to talk hockey, join on the playoff conversations with us, you can do so. Links to all of the socials are down in the description. All episodes across all platforms. Braden, as always, give me your final thoughts.
Final thoughts? Well, we already said what our predictions are for all of these series, both of us, but in the end, regardless of who you want to see win, Game 7s are just so fun to watch. That's just must-see television. If you got to Game 7, that means both teams have won 3 games. Either of these teams can beat each other. It's anyone's series. It's just so damn fun. I hope we get multiple, if not all of these series going to Game 7. It's just more fun. It's just fun.
Couldn't agree. Nothing better than that. But that does wrap up everything for this episode. Once again, hope you guys all enjoy. And as always, we will see all of you out on the ice next week.